Welcome, everybody, to Mary Giuliani Live. I am so glad you're here tonight. I have a fantastic show. We've got Bonnie Sachs, who is an amazing author, speaker, and healer. And she's going to be talking to us all about the universal laws. Some really interesting stuff, since many of you know that I have a law of attraction background. So she's really going to talk to us about integrating all the universal laws. So stay tuned. We've got Bonnie in the virtual green room. And the whole purpose here is really to help you transform your life. The experience that I've had over the past 30 years in my transformation has been all about putting myself in environments with people that were really into their own transformation and that were really taking risks and going for it. And so I've, been on this path for a long time, and I really get the power of hanging out with people that are really into their growth and really positive and are willing to be vulnerable as well. So if you're watching us, you're watching us on my website, because that's where we are. I want to encourage you to go up to marygiuliani.net and sign up for my email list, because there is just one email I send out once a week to invite you to come and see my guests for the week, so you'll know who is coming up on the show. You'll also get free links for the video and the audio version of the show as well. So make sure you get on my email list, and I also include some motivational things as well. So also, if you have iTunes, make sure you go to my Mary Giuliani Live iTunes channel as well. And the other thing that's so cool about live streaming is that you can actually ask Bonnie and myself questions in the middle of the show, right throughout the show. So make sure that you log into the chat app, which is, if you just go right beneath the little live stream box, there's a chat app. And all you got to do is, put your name in there and log in and ask questions or make comments. We'd love to hear from you. So let's see. We've got Sarah right now in the chat room, and we're really glad that you're here, Sarah. Okay, so with that, I'd like to introduce Bonnie Sachs, who is an author, a speaker, and a healer. And the book that she is the author of is The Health and Happiness Guide to the Universal Laws, What You Most Want to Know. So let's welcome Bonnie. Hey, Bonnie, how you doing?
Hi there. Great. How are you doing, Mary?
I'm very good. I'm so glad that we were able to get together today on this call. And, I've been, as I mentioned, very much into the law of attraction. And I've heard of many of these other universal laws, but the way you put together, and I'm going to show you your book, the way you put together all of these laws was just really brilliant in your book. And so I'm excited to ask you some questions about it.
Awesome.
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, I'm just curious, what made you, what got you on your spiritual path to begin with?
Well, actually, I haven't been on a spiritual path for all that long, although, looking at it in retrospect, I would say I probably have been a little bit on it my whole life, but didn't recognize it. So for me, I actually started on my spiritual path when a friend of mine gave me the gift of an Akashic record reading. And actually, ironically, you had her on the show just 2 weeks ago, Susan Lander, and she knew I was interested.
That gave you the reading.
It was Susan, and she knew I was interested in doing the Akashic records. That's one of those things that you have to really get up some nerve to do. And so she gave me the gift of a reading, and I got on the phone call with the purpose of finding out how I was supposed to be a health coach. I had just become certified as a health coach, and the person who I was speaking with said, "Do you know you're supposed to be reading the Akashic records?" And I said, yeah, okay, that's cool, that's neat. What else? What's next? And every time I asked a question, it kind of came back around to reading the Akashic records. And so what happened was, at the end of the reading, I said, all right, kind of giving up. What am I supposed to do? And she said, you want to get this book. It's How to Read the Akashic Records by Linda Howe. And so I got the book and got to chapter 4 and said, oh my gosh, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. And so it's just been a process of basically saying yes to whatever comes up next. So in the process of reading the Akashic Records, I got some information that I was supposed to be writing a book. And Susan must be my little angel, because once again, she and I were having lunch together and she said, it's time for you to write a book. And I said, yeah, I got that, but I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be writing about. And we talked for another few minutes and got that I was supposed to be writing about the universal laws. And that's kind of how it unfolded.
Oh, that's so interesting how, and well, given that you've not been on a spiritual path for, decades, it's amazing how just up to date and informed you are. Just for the viewers that aren't familiar with what the Akashic records are, would you mind sharing a little bit about that so they kind of have that context?
Sure. So I usually like to say the word Akasha is actually a Sanskrit word meaning everything in the universe. And so what the Akashic records are is everything that has ever been said, done, or thought in the universe. And when someone accesses the Akashic records, what they do is, there's many different ways to do it. I do it through saying a prayer. And when I say the prayer, I'm actually connecting to the other person's Akashic records, and I'm asking for information. So one of the most common questions that people ask me is, what's my purpose in life? And so what I'm doing is asking their Akashic records to bring up information about things that they've said, done, and thought in this life and in previous lives that give them some answers to what their purpose is now. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, totally. Well, thank you for that explanation. Because I
Sure.
know many people aren't familiar with it. Well, let's get into these universal laws. So you go over 13 of them, and I just thought, so we've got maybe another 40 minutes or so, 45 minutes, and I'd like to go
One.
over all of them. I know. Well, I know. So
Okay.
I mean, I'd like to go over several of them if that's okay.
Sure. Sure.
So the law of one, we are all connected. I love that law, and to me, it's the misunderstanding of this that's probably the core of all of the issues in the universe. But what do you have to say about it?
I absolutely agree with you. So, the law of one is that we all come from the same source, that we are basically little beings of light that have separated from that one source. And when we can
Yeah.
understand that we're all part of the same, that the person who lives on the other side of the planet, who doesn't look like me, act like me, or have anything related to me, is still my brother or my sister. They're still connected to me. And
Yes.
when we can begin to understand that more completely, then we have a better understanding of what's happening in the world.
Yes, absolutely. You know, um, I I love what you put in the book, how people all over the world have pretty much the same major issues, finding love in life, dealing with job, or they're, having fulfilling careers, or children or parent issues, or just fear of insecurity. I mean, and so it's like when we really get that we really are sort of, to me, I mean, my level of kind of understanding of it, we're really like all the same being, but we're just different expressions. And if everybody got that, like if I, hit you over the head with a hammer, I'm hitting myself with a hammer. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So anyway,
yeah, it
that's
is
that's
absolutely that. Absolutely. And I believe that's really nice when we can have that awareness that they say if a butterfly flaps its wings on one side of the planet, it affects what's happening on the other. And when we
right.
come into more awareness and understanding of that, we'll have more peace. And we're
Absolutely.
getting there.
Absolutely, we are. By the way, I want to mention that Jill is in the chat room, Sandy's in the chat room, and Sarah is there. So, yay!
Yay. I
And
love
by the
that.
way, chat room people, if you have any issues with the live stream or whatever, let me know so I know. That would be great. But apparently everything's going well on my end. It's streaming
Good.
and life is good. Okay, so let's
I'm
go to the
keeping my
next
fingers
one.
crossed.
Yes. So the law of reincarnation and karma. And I thought it was interesting that you put these together. And so could you share a little bit more about that, how they relate and how they operate?
Sure. Sure. So the reason why I put them together is because I was told to put them together. It wasn't
Okay.
something that I just randomly did. But,
Okay.
the law of reincarnation, it's interesting because this is the one where most people get stuck. Most beginners get stuck on,
Yeah.
like, well, what if I don't believe in reincarnation? And I usually tell them it's totally okay if you don't. But let's believe it for, so
Right.
for this evening, let's just believe that there is such a thing as reincarnation. And reincarnation is nothing more complicated than, we keep coming back lifetime after lifetime to have new experiences and to
Mm-hmm.
continue and clean up the things that we have done in previous lives. So that's about as simple as the law of reincarnation is. And then the law of karma, I love the law of karma. I think about it in terms of a math equation. Like,
Yeah.
I always want to make sure I do my math equation correctly. It's that
Right.
if we said, 3 divided by 13, 3 goes into 13 4 times with a remainder of 1. That 1 is the karma that gets brought over into our next life. And it's just things that are unfinished, incomplete,
Mm-hmm.
and something
Mm-hmm.
that we did in a previous life that we didn't get a chance to finish, we bring into our next life in order to complete it, to have an understanding and awareness and some sort
Mm-hmm.
of perspective on what we were supposed to get from that. So that's really why the two of them are connected together, because they're both about living previous life and bringing that in.
Right. Well, that's great. I mean, I know when I first learned about karma, I still was dealing with a lot of guilt issues. So I was like, it kind of made me spiral into, oh my
Yeah,
God, what's going to happen to me with my karma? And
of
then
course.
I started reading and, reading a lot of different books and texts and stuff like on it. And one of the things that really resonated for me about karma is we don't get punished for
Mm-hmm.
our karma or what we've done, but by our actions. Like we
Mm-hmm.
live in not, and I'm not saying that we don't have to come back and work it out if we don't work it out in this
Mm-hmm.
lifetime. But in other words, if I do something that hurts somebody else, I have to live with the energy of that misdeed. You know what I mean? It's like an instant
Right.
karma in a sense. So,
Right. So I like to use the example if somebody kills somebody in a previous life, there is something to heal or resolve. And so that's going to come into the next lifetime. And it might show up in a lot of different ways. Like we wouldn't necessarily know, oh, I'm clearing karma with this person because I saved their life. It might be something that is very different as it shows up.
mm-hmm,
It could
mm-hmm,
be our child that we have that we give life to. It could be something that's much more obscure, not a really clear thing, that it's just like if somebody doesn't have that connection to say, oh, you've
mm-hmm.
cleared karma with that person, then you might not know. But it's still there.
Right.
And it's never anything bad. One of the things I get a lot is people thinking that karma is the way we use it in street language, like, oh, watch out, you're going to create some bad karma there.
Yeah,
And that's not
exactly.
what karma is, from this perspective.
Exactly. And that's what I love about this perspective is that I think the whole Judeo-Christian sort of, if I dare say mythology, okay, I said it.
That works for me. You said it. Go
um,
ahead. Say it.
yes, uh, it places us in a position where we feel like we're constantly having to wonder if we're being bad or or going to get
Mm-hmm.
punished. And I love this philosophy that this isn't about punishment. This is about
Mm-hmm.
growth and compassion and understanding that we're not perfect and that we're here to learn and grow. And I love that you cover that in the book. So, yay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
100% agree with you.
Okay.
Yep.
Um, okay. So, the law of magnetic affinities. This is a
I love
fabulous one.
this
I
one.
love this one. So yeah. So share
So
about this one.
what's funny is the people that I work with, the students that I have, they start laughing when I'm like, I love this one, because then we get to the next one, I go, but I love this one, it's my favorite. But you know,
Yeah.
It's very true. What I love about the law of magnetic affinities is it explains all of our situations in life. So the law of magnetic
Mm-hmm.
affinities actually says that we sat down with our council of souls before we came into any particular lifetime, and we said, we want, this is the person we're going to marry, or these are the people we're going to marry, these are the jobs I'm going to have, this is my birth date, and we decide kind of all these things before we come into the lifetime. And that includes the things like, I'm going to have this disease or condition, I'm going to be poor, and then I'm going to make money, and then I'm going to lose it again. All of those kinds of things are actually have some structure before we come in. And so what I love about this law is that it makes everything make sense. It's not like you made a bad decision because you didn't go to college, or you made a bad decision because you got married to that louse. It's just, that's exactly how it was supposed to happen. And our job is to look and see where we're supposed to learn the lesson or have the experience. Like, oh, I was supposed to marry that louse so I could understand that I was more valuable than what I thought, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's interesting. It's like how to determine. Well, first of all, I just want to say the whole sense of that we set up our life on the other side before we come over, and I love the part where you say that we actually our parents actually get our name just through kind of like it channels through them. That was a trip. I hadn't heard that before. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Anyway, but also, I'm not sure if I'm understanding this correctly, but when you say magnetic affinities, so do you also mean that just the people that you're naturally drawn to in your life and people that you're not? Okay. And that's based. And I guess I kind of relate that to the law of attraction. And I know a lot of these laws sort of overlap each other as well. But
yeah, absolutely. They do overlap, and that's the thing that people sometimes get stuck on when they're trying to figure out, the law of attraction is a great one. Why am I not attracting, I'm thinking positive thoughts and I'm doing as much as I can. Why is it not working? And sometimes it's as simple as, you planned before you came in that was not going to be the case. You were not going to drive some fast sports car, because if you did, you were going to end up like you did in the previous life or something like that. So sometimes there's more involved in the attraction piece than we understand. So.
Oh my God, that's so key. I mean, in fact, I don't know if you're familiar with this one teacher. He's passed now. His name is David Hawkins. He wrote Power versus Force. But anyway, the point is that he helped me really have a breakthrough around sort of just understanding the law of attraction in a different way. And I've been a Esther and Abraham law of attraction person since like the mid 90s. And in the pure version of Abraham is that if you're not experiencing what you want in your life on a material or an emotional level, it's simply because you haven't lined up your energy, right? And the truth is for me, and there was areas in my law of attraction practice where I was feeling like, well, what's wrong with me, And and so anyway, his whole philosophy is this is actually his quote is. Potentiality becomes actuality when the conditions are right. And so and some of the conditions, like, you put a seed in the soil, the conditions need to be right. It needs to be healthy soil. It needs to be watered. It needs to have sun. It has to have your intention and your focus of it becoming a beautiful plant or whatever. But also one of the conditions can be karma, like what you talk about. Right. So that really helped me too, just sort of understanding that. So, because I was kind of like, I don't know if you can relate to this or not, but I kind of had some spiritual shame about it. Like, oh my God, I'm just like not doing it right. and it really helped just to recognize that, yeah, you know, anyway, we'll get into the other laws that relate to that too, but I just thought I'd share that story.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Thank you.
and then the law, because we're going to get into the law of attraction in a little bit, but I just wanted to go down the list. Okay, so the law of divine timing, which is really related to this, I think. How would you share that?
Oh, divine timing. That one has been showing up for me all over the place. And divine timing just basically says that everything is going to happen exactly as it is supposed to happen. And what's interesting for me about that is that it doesn't only mean that things are going to unfold as they're supposed to happen, but it's kind of like the flip side of that, which is however things happen is exactly as they're supposed to happen. So,
Right.
sometimes I think I'm supposed to be, moving to the right, and I end up moving to the left, and I get to the left, and I think, what happened? I was supposed to be moving to the right. And that thing that you talk about, that little bit of shaming is like,
Yeah.
how did I mess up? I was supposed to be
Right.
going to the right. And it's like, no, divine timing says that it happened
Right.
exactly as it was supposed to. Now the process is, can I appreciate that this is exactly where I'm supposed to be?
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that because I think, like you said, like we just both shared a bit, is that when we get really into our spiritual path, we really want to progress and see that we're becoming more aligned and better students of the law of attraction. But when we can understand that everything happens in divine timing, then it really, really helps. So I love divine timing. I think the catch thing that I can imagine some people could get caught in is to maybe think, okay, it's all divine timing and I don't really need to focus on anything and I'm just going to hang out and watch TV. So
Right.
no, that's not what we're talking about, right?
Right, right, absolutely. And I think there's some movie that actually jokes about that, and there's probably more than one that's like, you do have to get up and do things. So I really love the piece about how you and I ended up coming together as the law of divine timing, because I was meeting with somebody who said to me, you really need to start doing some more interviews and get out in the public and really promote your book. And I did one of those kinds of things.
Yeah,
And the next day I had an email in my box that said,
right.
from Susan, who said, Mary meet Bonnie, Bonnie meet Mary. And I didn't even know
Yeah,
what you did. But when we talked, it was like, okay, hello, I'm supposed to be doing this interview. This is the next thing. It wouldn't have appeared in my box like it
right.
did if this wasn't the
Hmm.
next thing for me to do. And I could have said, oh no, I'm too afraid, I'm too whatever to do it. But
Right,
my
right.
practice has been just keep saying yes. Okay, absolutely,
Yeah,
sure. When do you want to do that? So that is
right.
going with the flow of divine timing.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Divine timing. It's like
Kicks you in the
just a
butt
soft.
sometimes.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Well, to me, it's also a good reminder that to do my best with my focus, with my law of attraction, with aligning my energy, and letting go of the timing. Really, have an
Absolutely.
intention,
Absolutely.
but like if it happens, great. If it doesn't, great. Whatever, because it
Right.
doesn't define
Absolutely.
me.
Hmm.
Okay, cool. So the law of vibration and energy.
So
Let's talk about that.
the piece that I love about this is that it's just logic that everything has a vibration, everything has energy, and it's really that simple that when we understand that everything has a vibration, and in fact, everything has a frequency. I've actually expanded this to talk a lot more about frequency and how important that piece is, vibration, energy, and frequency, because when
Mm-hmm.
we understand that all relationships have an energy and a vibration and a frequency to them, we can understand the relationships a little bit better and work with them a little differently than if we just like, oh, it's a relationship, I don't know what to do with it. It's like, no, it's a relationship that is vibrating at a certain frequency, like kind of the dial on a radio. And when we want to tune in a little bit better, we need to actually pay attention and do a little bit of, shifting and work to find that exact spot where it's going to work. And so when we start using the model of energy, vibration, and frequency, we start having more understanding of what's happening in the world and why it's happening and what it's about.
Well, that's really, really cool. I know I remember first hearing about the vibration and frequency with the Abraham materials, and then it just seems like it's been getting a lot more popular in the past 10 or 15 years. One of the things that I've noticed, and I'm sure you have too, is that when we make major growth spurts, that the people that maybe aren't like lined up with us there tends to become friction in those relationships, and then new people that are aligned with us tend to start showing up. Just curious, how do you navigate those types of situations?
Yeah, so I exactly see it in that way. And for me, it's about as we raise our frequency, we are actually starting to let go of the things that are underneath that and things that don't really fit us anymore. It's kind of like when we're growing up with our clothes. Once we become 18 years old, we are not insisting that we still wear the clothes that we wore in kindergarten. We really understand that those no longer fit us, that things have shifted and changed, and we need to, move into that new set of clothes. And our relationships are like that as well, that everything shifts and changes based on where we are. And, in a very logical sense, it makes sense if you are really starting to get into playing tennis, that you're going to start finding people who love to play tennis, and the people who used to play soccer with you, unless they're playing tennis, you're not going to see them nearly as often. And it just kind of makes sense in the real world, but when we bring it into spirituality, somehow we add a layer of judgment that it's like, oh, we shouldn't be doing that. Or sometimes I hear people saying, I feel so bad because my friends are dropping away. And I remind them that they're dropping away all the time. When, you went off to college or you graduated high school, things like that happen all the time. So why shouldn't it happen here as well?
Well, and maybe, yes, and that's a beautiful, sort of way to help people realize that the bigger picture. I think the difference is that sometimes with a spiritual path, there can be more intention. Like, I know for me, I over the years, there has come a time when certain people just weren't good for me anymore. They weren't good for my well-being and that sort of thing. And so having the intention of letting go of those types of friendships or relationships is uncomfortable, because we are trained in our culture to be there no matter what, and and a lot of people sacrifice their entire lives in a lot of negative relationships. Any advice on that?
Yeah, so I actually had this situation with my daughter, with a friend of hers, that she kind of struggled over letting the attachments go. And she's like, but, I feel badly if I do A, I feel badly if I do B. What do I do? How do I manage this? And it's like, at some point we have to acknowledge that we have changed. And for me, it's always about having open communication with whoever it is, that it's like, I really feel like we're drifting apart, that we're kind of going in separate directions, but I want to be really clear that I, really respect you, I really like you, I really love you, whatever it is, and to be in a place where it's okay that that happens and that you're really clear. So it's not like, oh, I feel so badly, I haven't called that person, and
Right.
that just feels yucky.
Right. And to me, if we don't have a, maybe if we came from a sort of codependent sort of environment when we were growing up, if we still feel responsible for other people's feelings or their well-being, that can transfer over. And, and a lot of people will, sense that and try to make you feel bad because they're not really out there doing their work or whatever. But
Right.
anyway, but thank you for sharing about that, because I know that can be really hard. It has been for me. I used to hold a lot of guilt around letting go of relationships. And one of the teachers that I worked with, Susan Velasquez, she always reminded me of how our energy is sacred, and that we deserve to have the kind of energy in our lives that feels good to us. And it's not to say we're not there for people that are struggling. However, if there's a consistent level of negativity that is really not resolving, and that you've tried your best, that, the quality of our lives is made up of the relationships and the time that we spend with people. So, would you rather have someone's approval that makes your life miserable, or would you rather have a life that you love? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I sort of see that as honoring ourselves. We have to
right,
be sure that we honor ourselves just as much as we honor everybody else. Otherwise, why are we here?
right, exactly. And like, if I don't honor myself, how am I really able to share my highest contribution, most authentic contribution in the world, if I'm, another person complaining about their friends, versus
Right.
loving my life, loving my relationships, because I'm very intentional, and so yes, so thank you for
Yeah.
touching on that.
Sure.
By the way, chat room people, feel free to jump in and ask some questions or make some comments. I always like to remind everybody. So the law of manifestation. So what I have a note here. It says it happens in the present tense. It's like stating I am versus I will. And so, could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think the piece that I love about manifestation is that it is a very active practice, and it's something that we can engage in regularly to be more intentional about the way we speak, about how we phrase things, and being very clear that we are constantly creating things as we speak. So I love the idea that we are master creators, and
Absolutely.
we don't even realize how powerful we are, that as we're speaking, we are constantly putting forth what's next, what's going to happen. And so in the law of manifestation, it's, let's pay attention to that so that we
Yeah.
understand constantly, you know, what's the next thing? What are we looking at? How do
Right.
we want to be? How do we want to show up? So I love that
Right.
piece about it.
Yeah. I mean, this totally reminds me of Abraham. Like, I know when I used to teach these law of attraction classes, we would really focus on helping people reframe and restate their intentions, because a lot of people would say, well, okay, my intention is that I want to be pain free. And, that includes the word pain. And so,
Right.
instead, I want my body to feel better, and, every cell of it being vibrant and healthy, so it is really, really key to, focus on. And, the other thing about what you had mentioned in your book, which I love, is focusing on not I will have a healthy body, but I have a healthy body
Right,
in the present
right.
tense.
Absolutely, keeping it in the present tense, because what we're actually doing is creating it. And the reason why we get sick in the first place is because we take on that belief that, whatever it is, if it's that we're not good enough, we're going to take on some disease that's going to show that. And it starts with our thoughts. We put a bunch of thoughts together, then we put the action together, and then our body starts listening to us. And the more we say, I have this or I have that, the more our body goes, oh, okay, we do. So let's keep giving ourselves more of that rather than shifting into clearing whatever that is.
Right. It's so true. There is a lot of there's a lot of opinions in the law of attraction world about health issues, and I think a lot of people feel like there's a lack of compassion sometimes when you show up not feeling well or having some serious illness, and someone will say, "Well, you've created it, and what are you going to do about it?" How do you handle that?
So it's absolutely true that there is sometimes there is a lack of compassion, and it's absolutely true that we create everything. But as in everything, we want to have some sort of balance. And as somebody who works with people who come and ask me, why do I have this disease or condition? The information that I'm constantly getting is that we have chosen to have this condition. If we talk about something like cancer, we actually, I just did a phone call a couple weeks ago about this. We actually choose to have diseases and conditions for the experience that we're going to have. So maybe we need to learn to have more compassion and more understanding about, what it's like to have complete exhaustion and to be scared that you don't know what's going to happen. And the people who don't have that experience have the opportunity to step into that compassionate role with the person. And everything is there for us to look at, like, oh, maybe I need to be more compassionate with a person who just is struggling to not get sick, every morning. Let me have some more compassion. So that is there for us to have some compassion for them. It's just another learning experience is the really easy way to say it.
Well, thank you for that. How would you respond to someone that has a chronic condition that is not really looking at it like, oh, this is something to teach me something about my growth, but is really looking at it as a victim? Yes, and I believe that compassion is always a beautiful way to hold people. And yet, what about somebody that's not willing to or gets upset if you even suggest that maybe there's some component of their own responsibility in it?
So for me, they're in the same place as somebody who doesn't believe in reincarnation. And I completely understand if they don't understand that or agree with it, that is their own place to be. And it's not, not my place to tell you how you need to believe. If you think that you have a disease or condition because whatever the reason, you inherited it or anything else, it's not my place to give you some other opinion about it. It's just for me to say, okay, that's okay, and to move through that. When somebody asks me to give my perspective, I will, but I'm certainly going to understand if they don't believe that, because there was a time when I didn't believe it either.
And I guess, yes, and thank you for that. So, and I guess for the person on the end of hearing a lot of complaints and stuff, that it's their choice about how much time they want to spend with that person.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, it's always our choice, right?
Right. We have a couple of questions in the chat room.
Sure.
So I'm not sure what this person's name is because they're a guest in the chat room. But anyway, the question is Bonnie's family into all of these concepts as well? And the same person is asking, what should a newbie to these ideas, laws do to take a step forward in their enlightenment?
That's a wonderful question. It sounds like it almost would be one of my family members, and the answer to that is no. No, not everybody is into all this stuff, and the person who's been the most fabulous and the most supportive is my husband. And if he were sitting next to me, he would be like, yeah, I thought she was totally out of her mind. And sometimes he still thinks I'm totally out of my mind with all of this stuff. But he, to his credit, has been willing to always like listen another minute or two and say, okay, I'll go along with you. And,
Right.
you know, my family is normal just like everybody else. In fact, if you were to talk to my daughter would confirm that I have not always been this far out on my opinions and ideas. So, everybody needs to be where they need to be. And I always try to be really understanding about where they are. Am I always that understanding?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Since he's not sitting here, I might as well say that. But, we just try to do the best we can with where people are.
Right. Well, good. Yeah, my family's definitely not into this.
Yeah. Of course.
But it's I mean, frankly, we're really on the fringe in a sense. If you think about, I mean,
Absolutely.
not in a negative way, but in my
Yeah.
opinion, it's just I'm following my heart, and it feels great. And I think the majority of our culture is sort of in a trance of the culture. So it's I'm really glad I'm here, and it sounds like you are too. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I really feel like we're kind of constantly pushing the boundaries. And that's kind of, as I was thinking about, I'm like, oh, that would be like my brother too, who has known my whole life that I'm constantly pushing the boundaries. And so he's very much like, so what else is new, Bonnie? And just goes, okay, so what are you up to now? And then goes along his merry way. So it's totally okay that they are like that.
well, that's awesome. You obviously are in complete acceptance and have no resistance to it, which is great. And that same guest in the chat room says that your husband sounds wonderful. So kudos to hubby.
There you go.
Okay, so let's get into the law of free will, and then we'll do the law of attraction after that. So the law of free will, I have a note here to ask you. How does this work with divine timing? And so also, well, why don't you just answer that one first, and then we'll get to the next question I have for you.
Yeah, so I think the law of free will is the one that gets most people stuck. And
Mm-hmm.
that's that we do have free will within certain boundaries, and that because we have planned our life, there are some places where we might choose to go a different way. I like to use the example of a friend of mine who, apparently before she came into this life, said she wasn't ever going to have children. And when she came into this life, she was like, what? How could I possibly agree to something like that? And, she decided that she did want to have children, which is her free will that she,
Ah,
called
okay.
into play. And, she ended up getting married, and she didn't have just one or two, she had four. So,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, and it was just a matter of, you know, I thought that's what I wanted, and now I want something else, and
Okay.
it's everybody agreeing that is okay to do.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing that. There was this
Sure.
one piece in the book that it was like I wasn't sure what you meant, so I wanted to clarify it. And
Okay.
this is under the free will one. It says, "My question is, what did your guides mean by when the time is right, you do have complete free will and can demand it from all beings in the universe. At that time, you will understand the consequences of your request on a cosmic level. you will be fully aware of the karmic implications and will be fully prepared.
So everything that we do has implications. So, for example, my friend who had children, obviously she has a an agreement to have these children, and so there are implications in that. She's bringing four people into the world, and there are cosmic implications with that. So it's just a matter of understanding that everything we do has something that follows
Okay.
after it. It's right.
Right.
Does that make
Choices, sort
sense?
of like choices and consequences, in that we
Yeah,
are
absolutely.
responsible. Okay, cool.
Absolutely. We don't get to say, but I want it. And then it comes, and there's nothing that comes after that. It's like, and now you have, I mean, my
Yes.
dad used to say, and now you have to pay the piper.
Right. It's or like kind of like that saying, be careful what you wish for, you might get it kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
In other words,
absolutely.
there's trade-offs. Yeah, there are.
Uh-huh.
Well, thank you
Absolutely.
for that. So
Sure.
let's get into the law of attraction. Like attracts like. And my question here is how to use the law of attraction with the other laws without there being a conflict. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I know it's kind of a loaded question, but I thought I'd throw it out there.
Okay, so it is a little bit of a loaded question because the piece about the law of attraction is I would say it like this. What I've discovered since writing the book is that the more I find ways to to flow with what I'm supposed to be doing, the more that
Mm-hmm.
things come to me. So I
Mm-hmm.
use the example now of when my husband and I were looking for a new house, that
Mm-hmm.
I knew that we were in alignment with what was next to come. I knew that it was divine timing that we were supposed to be finding a house. So I was very
Uh-huh.
clear that it was going to come to me. I just had to keep putting myself in the place of finding that house. And so, like we talked about earlier, that part of that is that, I had to be looking online for houses and be willing to go look at houses. If I just sat home, nothing was ever
Right.
going to happen. But as I, started to do the things that I knew I was supposed to be doing, then things started to unfold. The perfect house came available, and then the perfect buyer for our previous house became available, and
Right.
everything just in in the timing that it was supposed to. And we have a great story sometime I'll tell you um, about my husband being a nervous wreck because everything had to fall into place for us to move into our house. And I kept saying,
Right.
it's all going to work out. It's all going to work out because I was doing what I knew I was supposed to be doing. Sometimes the law of attraction feels really tough because we're not actually in alignment with what we're supposed to be doing. And that for me is a sign that I'm not supposed to be doing it. And for me to
Right.
take a step back and wait for the next sign, so to speak, that it is where I'm
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be going.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, thank you for that. That was really, really good, really insightful. And, it's interesting how I've been really into psychology as well and so I've really noticed that for me, uh, if I'm coming from a wound-based kind of energy around what I want in my life, it creates resistance. In other words, if it's ego-based or if it's like I have to achieve this to feel okay about who I am, then there's going to be issues. You know what I mean? So I think that there's some psychology or maybe emotional intelligence or just some self-awareness around just your own particular wounds that needs to be addressed as well. Yeah.
The law of resistance just says when you are not moving in alignment with where you're supposed to be going, there's going to be all sorts of roadblocks and things that come into your way. And so if you can just notice when things aren't flowing smoothly, then you can start to ask, well, is it something I'm resisting? Is there something that I'm, trying hard not to do? And
Right.
as soon as we get back into alignment, then it all starts to flow again, right? So that one can be a little sticky. And sometimes I think it's hard to see the difference between the law of resistance and the law of reflection, because
Yes.
resistance is what is keeping us stuck. And the law of reflection says that everything that we see out in the world
Yes.
is just a reflection of what is going on inside. So that's kind of the
Right.
opportunity for us to look at what is happening out there and how we're viewing it and going, oh, how does that relate to what's going inside of me? But resistance is, oh, look where I'm trying to keep from, going
Right.
in that direction, and I need to just exactly go there.
Well, thank you for that because to me, the being able to shift yourself out of resistance or recognize the law of reflection. So just owning that whatever's showing up in like the world is a reflection of me, it gives us an opportunity to shift ourselves. I know for me, until I did a lot of psychological work on not personalizing everything that was happening to me, like there was something wrong with me,
Yeah.
versus this is just the universe is neutral. Whatever people say to you has nothing to do with you, really. And whatever it triggers in you is your stuff. And once I could really get into self-compassion, self-forgiveness, and self-acceptance, it's been a
Right.
lot less resistance. But, the culture we live in, like, depends on us having all these neuroses so that they can sell us all these products.
That is
Believe me, I know. I used to be in
100% true.
advertising. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really dependent on us to have problems and issues. And when we don't,
Yeah.
actually people look at you like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that,
Yeah.
so yeah, so thank you for covering those two as well. So abundance, the law of abundance, and then we'll wrap up a bit.
Yeah.
Uh, could you share about the law of abundance and the three keys of having all the abundance that you want? That'd be
Well,
great.
I think here's the most important thing for everybody to always know is that there is no scarcity whatsoever. Scarcity does not actually exist. It was created, by our political system and our religious institutions and all of those things out there to make us think that we do not have enough. And what I love about the law of abundance is how it was given to me is that if the sun shines equally on all of us, the sun does not say, well, I'm going to shine on Bonnie, but I'm not going to shine on her husband. It just shines equally without any regard. And it's that there's always enough to go around. There's plenty. It is an infinite supply. And when we
Yes.
start to understand that and work from that place, we don't get jealous because, somebody
Right.
breathes more air than we
I know.
do.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love the sun analogy and the oxygen analogy and 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 so coming I feel like I've made a lot of progress in that arena.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned, I have an advertising background and marketing background, and a lot of the training you get in there is to focus on when you're talking with clients about, okay, so who are your competitors, and I mean, it's just this all this
We got
energy.
to beat them to market. We
Yeah,
got to get the
yeah,
edge in, and yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
And it is none
and
of that stuff. It's
it's an
infinite.
illusion. And actually, one of the guys I had on this show, Jeffrey Van Dyke, he calls people that typically would be considered competitors in our, you know, business culture, his niche mates. Isn't that cool?
I like
So
that.
like, yeah. Um, And so
Yeah.
the law of abundance, you've got the three keys. There's the believe, you have to believe in unlimited abundance, and you have to know you deserve it, and you have to know how to manifest. And so
Yeah.
I love how you concisely put that together. Any particular one of those that's more difficult than others for people that you found?
I think it really depends on the day. You
Yeah.
know, that there are days when belief is like so easy. Oh, this is going to happen. I'm sure this is
Yeah.
gonna move forward. And then there's times where I'm like, I couldn't manifest a smile to save my life. So, you know, it just happens as it happens, whatever is going on in the day. And it's whether, you know, I can keep taking a step back and remembering the big picture. And that's really where it's beautiful to have a lot of friends and a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
who speak the same language around you. Because, you know, I have people I can go and see and say, oh, I just can't
Yeah.
get past this. And they're like, oh, but remember, and then, you know, they do
Yeah.
something to help me move forward in one of those areas. So,
Very
yeah.
cool. By the way, Sandy in the chat room made a comment about how she recently learned that resistance causes allergies and all sorts of problems.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. There's all sorts of those things that are created because we get stuck. I actually have a frozen shoulder issue happening right now that is all completely emotional. It's all stuff that I have
Mm-hmm.
created over the last few months about moving forward
Oh, okay.
and being in alignment with what I'm supposed to be doing. And I actually have a very dear friend who said, it really looks to me like your head is moving faster than your body is. And so I'm, you
Oh,
know, constantly working on that kind of stuff like, oh, look, it's
yeah,
something I can work on. Let me, you know, keep my body at peace and
yeah,
answer what my body needs so that we can be in alignment, literally, an alignment so we can move forward and not be in pain or have issues.
right. Well, very good. Well,
Hmm.
thank you for that. I noticed you
Sure.
referenced Louise Hay, her book, You Can Heal Your Life, I think it is, or Heal Your Body,
Yeah. You can heal
and
your
how
life.
these,
Yeah.
yeah, all the different causes of physical ailments. So, yay. Yay,
Yeah,
Louise Hay.
understanding the energy of it because our body, and there's a lot of different practices out there that use or get our body to talk to us, and our body wants to tell the story and explain what's going on. We just
Yes,
have to be open to
listen.
listening to it. Hmm.
And I think that's one of the greatest
Absolutely.
things about meditation, too, is that you get quiet enough to listen to your body as well as just getting quiet. So,
Yeah,
yay.
absolutely. It's really important for us to listen.
Well, very cool. Well, we're really at the end of our time, but I wanted to ask you a
Yay.
couple of last things. This has been so cool,
Sure.
Bonnie. I'm just so impressed with how you've brought these things, these laws together in this book. And I would highly
Thank
recommend you
you.
guys read it. I read it in like a couple days. It was such a great
Yeah.
read, and it's really compact and really helpful, especially when you hear so much about the secret and the law of attraction. It really puts a lot of things in perspective that I think is really important. How can people work with you?
So the easiest way to work with me is to go to my website, which is
Okay.
bonniesachs.com. And, you know, I do Akashic record readings if people are interested in that. The thing that
Mm-hmm.
I love to do the most is actually to do healing sessions with people. And so that's kind of a nice blend of, you know, reading the Akashic records and doing some healing work as it comes up. So often people have an issue that comes up. You know, it might be something that shows up from a past life where we can actually go in and heal the problems that created it and move past that. So I really love to work with people in that way, and that's just
Mm-hmm.
you can find me on my website.
And is this something you do remotely as well as in person?
I do. And that's one of the
Okay.
really nice things about it is that, it's energy work. So we do it by a phone call. I can do it
Nice.
on freeconferencecall.com where I actually record it and send you
Mm-hmm.
the recording so that you have that. And I've actually spoken to people all over the world, which is really fun and interesting because then you find out that we really are all alike and have the
Yep.
same issues, concerns, things that
Yeah.
we want answers to. So yeah, it doesn't matter. I can do it through Skype. I
Oh,
can,
great.
just do it on the phone, but it's something that I really love and enjoy doing.
Awesome. Well, great. So make
Hmm.
sure you guys go to bonniesacks.com and make sure you buy her book because I'm telling you, I've been on this journey for a while and this is a great book. It really, really is. So thank you
Well,
for that, Bonnie. The last question I always like to
about my
ask
book.
everybody is
Go ahead.
uh, what is the message that you're most passionate about that you want to leave with our viewers tonight?
The message that I'm most passionate about. Actually, it changes on a regular basis. But
Mm-hmm.
right now, my biggest message is for people to understand that this is not difficult, that this process of us
Nice.
coming into more awareness and having access to our information is not as difficult as any of us make it. And I'm definitely including myself in that, message is that we tend to think that healing and handling our issues or talking to our parents and telling them what we most desire in the world is like the biggest crisis, in our lives. And when we actually go and do it, we discover that it's really not difficult. And that is the case with all of this stuff, hands down, all the time. It's not as difficult as we make it, ever.
Wow. I love that. I love that reframe. It's so
Yeah.
powerful. So thank you so much, Bonnie. And
Thank
I
you,
really
Mary.
love what you're doing, and I would love to have you back with any new things or, even these, because we obviously
Absolutely.
didn't have a lot of time to go over everything in detail, but I know you're growing and expanding, so I'm sure you'll have even other things we can discuss in the future.
Oh,
So
sure. Oh,
let's
sure. Always,
let's
always. I'd
say
love
good,
to.
yeah, let's say goodbye to Bonnie. Bye, Bonnie.
Bye.
Take
Thanks.
care. I have a couple of announcements now, and then we're going to wrap up for the evening. Um, I like to do a coaching challenge every single week since I am a life coach. And the challenge that I want to do tonight is aligned with Bonnie's book. And it's really about taking a look at one of the laws of the universe that we discussed tonight and looking at maybe one that you have the most difficulty with. Is it the law of attraction? Is it the law of reincarnation or free will or resistance? And take a look at one step that you can take to really embrace and get a deeper understanding and come from it in a way that really works at creating a life that you really love. And that might be buying Bonnie's book or going to her website or some other practice that you're already aware of. But, the universal laws are so powerful. And I got to tell you that my life is so much better since I've been studying these laws and these principles. And so the thing that you got to do to lock it in, though, is you got to put it on your calendar or put it somewhere that you know that you'll be reminded to do it. And by when, like tomorrow, I really want to say, do it tomorrow, and you'll be amazed at what happens. Okay, so that's my coaching tip or challenge for the day or the week. And now I want to mention a couple of things that I do around coaching. The first type of coaching I do is living your highest calling. And, at the end of the day, at the end of your life, I know that we all want to know that we've really shared our gift with the world or come from the place of really coming from our heart and being true to ourselves. And so many of us have such difficulty in getting in touch with what that is, or if you do know what it is, have so many fears about actually doing it. So I am a coach that will help you do that. I'm doing it myself. I'm 100% authentic in my life and love helping mostly women that are in my midlife age range seem to I work well with. And, I've been up the mountain. I mean, I'm always on the mountain, but I am doing the work and living my passion, and would love to support you in doing the same. So if you need some help, go up to my website, marygiuliani.net, and go to the coaching section. Also, I am a live stream coach and consultant as well. In fact, if you'd like to have your own live stream program, I can help you produce it. So if you've got a seminar, or if you want to have a talk show, or if you want to do music, anything on live stream, let me know. I'd be glad to talk to you about helping you do it. And it can be to the point where you don't even have to know the technology. I can be behind the scenes and do it for you. So go up to my website, to the live stream section, and you can check that one out. And next week is the first Wednesday of the month, which means it's Conscious Conversation Salon time, where we choose a topic and talk about the topic versus having a guest interview. So this week, coming week on the 1st of August, is going to be about setting healthy boundaries, healing codependency, and learning how to connect more deeply with yourself and others. And I know that this has been a huge transformation for me in my life, and there can be a lot of pain around codependency, and it can actually cause a lot of physical issues as well. And so I would love to have you join us, and so just make sure you join us next week for that. What else do I have? Well, I have my last tip, which of course is, what's one thing that you are committed to doing to be true to yourself? And I want to support you in putting that on your calendar so you really do it, and you do it tomorrow. And let me know how it goes. Let me know how your the coaching tip went too, because I am putting together a show of people that are implementing these tips and these ideas, and would love to hear your successes and celebrate you. So with that, have a great week, everybody, and we will see you next week.